thing, not something you talked about. Say the legends.
When you have people in Amsterdam talking about I'm a graffiti artist, I'm like, dude, did you run on the wall and get shot by the cops? Did you pay on the wall? Did you run to the trains down that were sitting there? Like, you didn't do any of these things.
It was an experience, right?
You don't go to a gallery and then you get all the credit on top of that. All these look, I knew all the artists in the North.
So tell us about that. So you're growing up, you're in middle school, high school, and you get involved with the scene and the arts. And when you...
Okay, this is what happened. I was me and my brother both drew, but he stopped. He was actually better than me at one point. He stopped because he got into football and got into breakdance. He was like one of the best breakdancers in the whole thing. We used to actually go battle of the crews in New York and Jersey City and blah blah blah. But hip hop, graffiti, it kept me going in terms of art. First, like everyone else in the hood, which is where I grew up, you know what I mean? It's comic books get you going because you see art and you're like, oh, right, comic books. Right. You know what I mean? Like, but I was always drawing. I would even draw in the back of my tests. My teacher would bring my dad in. He'd be like, stop drawing! What's wrong with you? But the visions, I couldn't control it.
You just had to get it
out. Yeah. And he could draw. And my mom could draw. So it's not...
So that was normal.
They were trying to suppress what they are. And I'm like, it's not stopping for me.
Yeah. And then you gotta go take a shower. You gotta go to school.
And you gotta draw.
Yeah. And you just want to draw. Oh, stinky cell. Draw.
Oh, man. So what happened is graffiti got me more interested in art in a way that comic books hadn't, because I started rebelling against comics. I was getting sick of tights, sick of Marvel. I was getting sick of nothing looking like me. That was the biggest thing, and I was like, graffiti. I started doing b-boys like me, and because I could draw, it wasn't looking totally like my other graffiti artist friends. They were like, man, you're putting more art into it.
Flip that.
Yeah. So then one of the best graffiti artists, he stole my graffiti book.
Oh,
it was in 10th grade. I had all my secrets, and he always would tell me, hey, man, can I see that book? I was like, nah, man. I used to draw like this. I'm known for never letting people even see my techniques. Like, all the way to this day, I hide that stuff. But it comes from those times, because, you know, back in the day, you tried to be the most original. Think of that. You tried to come out with something new. Like, nobody see this. And when he stole my book. But the funny thing about him stealing my book is I was also, I had finally gotten a real art teacher too. So they were actually showing me, like, I didn't really know about fine art, and I didn't know about anything, because that's just how it is when you grow up in places, you know what I mean? You just like comic books, that's what you think art is, comic books, cartoons,
pop culture stuff.
So, but because they introduced me to just other types of art, and I was pissed off because someone stole my book, I switched art altogether. I said, I'm done with graffiti. And that was like a big shift. I was like, so let's see what this is. So I started winning some awards, and then I had a really good friend. And he was me and him together, like, we had a school of 4,000 kids. That's how Elizabeth was. And it was like 1A, and he went to a magnet art school, so he was more advanced than me in terms of what art is.
The definitions.
Yeah, and like composition. Like, I didn't think of none of that stuff. But when I started to, I still had the mentality like the way a graffiti artist is too. So I just brought that in with me. And then I seen anime for the first time, and that helped me get away from Marvel forever, because I was like, now I could break away and actually, because I was always interested in technology and science, always, because of my dad. That's how he was, and I seen some of that in there, like, and that was the actual excitement of anime back in the day, like that there was these crazy technological discoveries, and I was like, I like that.
Yeah.
And then boom, I started doing it, but something happened along the way where we had a project, and they were like, create characters from the world or something like that. And that was literally the first time I started thinking about Africa. That was it. It was like 10th grade, 11th grade. I had never, like, no one had ever said, hey, what about your own culture? What about Africa? What about Haiti? What about the Caribbean? What about, you know, things happening in Latin America? I didn't know nothing. And I realized that wasn't just a problem. That was actually by design. I don't know when my mind clicked, but I did my first character, and I just picked a country. I said Zaire. It was Zaire at the time. It's not now. But and it had a great flag, and I created this thing, and they were like, man, that's cool. What? I do this African thing. And then I remember, like, what's wrong? Like, and it just so happens when I started thinking about that, all of a sudden, Public Enemy came out, and they started getting the militant drum again. And I knew my parents were militant. And my art was starting to come out, and I had a graffiti background of just counterculture. We don't do what we want to do. And it just all exploded at a certain time. Like, and then when I left high school, I was going to go to one of these big schools. I was going to go to School of Visual Arts or Pratt. I decided to go partially because my dad messed up my financial aid.
He messed it up?
Yeah, he messed it up. He didn't. I ain't doing this. What do you mean ain't doing it? So I went to School of Fine and Industrial Art in Newark, New Jersey. And I remember I told you, Newark has its own vibe. So that's where it all, that's the beginning of the end of the beginning. Because now I'm going in here, I'm coming from this lower middle class. It was just hip hop. It was breaking. It was everything just suburban, urban kid do without certain things that were happening, worse in Newark. But even before I graduated, right around 11th grade, crack cocaine exploded on the streets. Right in the middle of my high school.
Wow.
So remember, I come from a suburban town, so they had a little more money. Now that means now you have a little more money to buy drugs.
Yeah.
So my town went from like one of these cool places to like literally a war zone in a week in the summer. I remember the summer. I was right there. I've been writing these memoirs called The Year the Homeboy Died. That is exactly what it's about. I was there. So all I'm telling you is it really messed everything up. Now, my culture that I loved, which was breakdancing, graffiti, and everything else that goes with it, was starting to be commercialized and turned into this thing where you really want to look like emulate a drug dealer.
Right, yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah, it turned into drug dealers.
It went from the energy we were talking about, it turned to something sort of sinister.
Yeah, well, but that's when it came into my side, because
that's right.
West Coast.
That's right.
LA, gangster rap.
That's right.
But we were living like that already for hundreds of years in California. In LA, yes, Mexicans been gangster for a long time.
Gangster.
So it just like, hey, now it's our turn. We get to rap now. And but it was the whole music industrial complex turned it into something. And
these guys realized you can make money and just annihilate these crews. Now let me tell you something. These crews that we were all in, they all became drug dealing crews because they were. Hip hop organized them. The breakdance organized. Like we had this group street, that street. They all just flipped it. All of them. Yeah. Every single one of them in my entire town. They were so big, they started taking over. You wouldn't think you could take over somewhere like Newark, New Jersey, but they did. And it was crazy. And I was because it's a port city, and then there's a lot of other bigger entities happening in that town. Like, The Sopranos is based off of my town. Okay, it's based off of Elizabeth, New Jersey. So But my high school, I don't think anyone will ever have the type of experience I had. Because you got rap crews, breakdance, goth kids, made men's kids. You got all the Puerto Ricans. It was just Puerto Ricans back in the day. Now it's everybody, but it was just Puerto Ricans, and and it was something else to grow up like that, man. You see there's a lot of division, but the school is where everything just explodes at. Mm-hmm. But that I took all that energy and I brought it with me
to college.
Yeah,
damn.
But college introduced me to something else altogether. A whole nother group of rebels. I mean, these guys. It was like a whole bunch of Basquiat-ish, Keith Haring-ish kids. And like I told you, I was underexposed to the arts. So these guys came in knowing about the arts, but knowing about the street culture, especially coming out of New York. We got two guys that came out. Instead of going to school in New York, they came to school here. And man, it just added to my art because everyone was their own corporation. And I don't know any other way to explain it, but like my one friend did Cheese Man. Everything was cheese. He had it on his shoes. He had it on his shoes.
What do you mean?
Dude, it was like Cheese Man graffiti. It was Swiss cheese looking men with arms and legs. And it was the greatest thing. And this whole, everyone, we didn't see nothing like that before. You know, you're coming in, I'm doing Marvel, I'm doing anime. And then these guys, they twist your mind and like, dude, we can do anything.
Yeah.
And then the other dude's coming in and he keeps drawing X-Clan. And,
yes.
And I'm like, oh, okay. But me, I always had my darker side because of my dad.
So I got some shit. I'll show you something. All right. Y'all want to rally against something? We're going to start a war.
Yo, it was crazy, all right? And then so my name, at that time, I started doing everything with skulls, and I really love the future, but I'm like, dude, I gotta take this up to another level. So at that time, I was known as the guy that did I would do these crazy urban people. They all had gas masks. There was a lot of graveyards. Because I just felt, because remember, in 1991, and 90 to 96, 95, everyone had no hope. I don't know if you remember those days, but it was George Bush Sr. George Bush Sr. was it. Grunge, no, everything was kind of messed up.
Y2K, scared.
See, that came before that.
Yeah, right before that.
No one knew the internet wasn't big yet. So Generation X was like, "What are we gonna get a job? Like, we're just gonna die. Like that's how we were." It's all over, man. Yeah. Then the internet came, and then by accident, I ran into couple of UK groups trying to do hip hop and then trying to do something else. They were actually doing something else because they were trying to do hip hop, but they were being influenced by they weren't in our system, so it was warping into something else. And I was like, wow, hip hop could change to something else. Like it could still come from it, but you know what I mean? It's like changing it, and that whole concept just made me change my art. And then I started oil painting. And I did my first real face for the first time. And that, with all that other crazy background I had, I was like, I actually like some of this fine art stuff. Like, I actually, not really all of it, because I was still trying to understand.
Because before that, it was markers. It was pencils, paper.
I had like 1,000
spray cans.
I was known as my marker technique was crazy.
Right.
And that's what I was known for. Yeah. Spray cans.
Spray cans. Yeah.
The big sharp, the big ink ones.
I got some big fat markers, the big pilot.
And you know what I mean? And I was like, wow. But if I could take this energy and put it into an oil painting, because I remember we had an art show in school, and that was my last super markerish technique. And they were like, this is great, but I remember them not really respecting it the way they should. I just remember that. I put everything into it. I put all these sciences I was starting to get into and everything. And then I was like, what could I do to change this? So the next time, I did a painting. And man, it changed everything. Now I don't know. I don't even know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. All I'm telling you is that these people, they respected. I did the exact same thing as an oil painting, and it was like the greatest thing since. Like